Hello folks, this is Sula once again. Welcome to another video for Teamfight Tactics. In this video we're going to be looking at a normal game, and we're going to be looking in a Spellweavers based team composition. Going to be Spellweavers playing ultimately into a Vel'koz down the road, since Vel'koz is the primary carry for a Spellweavers team composition. This is a team composition that I've been playing a lot more in response to the most recent patch that came out. I believe the second official patch for Teamfight Tactics, or I guess the first one that came out after the set itself released. There were a number of different changes in that patch. It was actually a humongous balance patch as far as things go. And the Karma Dawnbringers team composition that I'd been playing in the first patch ended up getting nerfed by a pretty good amount. Just doesn't feel like that team composition's in a pretty good place. So I've been switching instead much more to running Spellweavers, because it's kind of the one kind of magic damage AP based spell composition that's kind of in the metagame right now. And that's something that I'm going to look to play in this game. This is pre-recorded footage, of course, so I can tell you that that's already kind of the direction that this team's going to go. The way that the team comp works is you want to get some kind of, like most other team compositions in Teamfight Tactics, you want to get some kind of tanky front line that your champions can hide behind, and then ultimately play through carries that are in the back line, and in this case, that carry is ultimately going to be Vel'koz. There's a number of different ways you can build a Vel'koz team composition. This game is going to be focused on the four Spellweavers version of that particular setup. As of right now, of course, I have no Spellweavers. I haven't seen any of them yet, which is less than ideal, but they will be showing up in time. One of the things that I like about the four Spellweavers setup is the damage is very consistent. You end up getting very good damage by running four Spellweavers because of the way the Spellweaver trait works, and we'll talk about that as the game goes on. So you even if you just have and there we finally have a Spellweaver. We see the Victor pop up there. You tend to have very good damage because all four of the Spellweavers will end up getting a lot of ability power just due to how their abilities work, or due to how the Spellweaver's trait works. But the trade-off is that you do end up playing some units that kind of aren't that great in the late game by having units, like if you're going to run four Spellweavers, you're going to have some units that really aren't terribly good in the late game. Like you're going to need to play Victor and Brand and Zyra. So you do have some units that, while they're not terrible, you do have some 2-cost units that you're playing in the late game, which is maybe not quite as ideal as what you'd want. But the trade-off is you have very good damage capacity. So if your front line can hold up well enough, you actually have multiple threats, because even units like Brand can do a lot of damage even if they're not highly itemized. Anyway, though, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Well, like I said, I want to talk more about Spellweavers as the game goes on. But so far, I have randomly made a 2-star Poppy. I've also randomly made a 2-star Vlad. So I'm actually going to run the Vlad as like temporary frontline here, even though Vlad is not intended to be a frontline unit. Without the Nightbringer, maybe with the Nightbringer's trait where he gets the shield, but otherwise, no, it's not something that's going to be. He's really not much of a frontliner. So we get as far as the items came in, I took the rod off the initial carousel, which makes sense if I'm trying to play into this team composition. And then I've also gotten a tier, which is nice. I'm going to want to get a sword to make Spear of Shojin down the road. And then I've got a belt, which I can't really use all that well, although it's not bad for a frontliner. And then here on the armory, I opt to take the glove, so I'm able to make spell crits, get the jeweled gauntlets here. This is not going to be a very good item on the Vlad, but I'm thinking I won't keep the Vlad in this team for very long. I'm hoping that I can find, since I found the early 2-star Poppy, I'm hoping I can find another frontline knight to play, and then I'll look to transfer these items over to one of the Spellweavers. Generally, Ziggs is the best early game Spellweaver to hold items that goes to Vel'koz later. It's a very natural transition. Ziggs, it deals good damage for the early game, single target damage, so he falls off pretty hard late game, but he does good damage for the early game. And since he is the Spellweaver that is most early game focused, he's the one you would take out of the comp anyway, so you can just kind of smoothly take him out of the comp and just transfer his items over to a Vel'koz later on. So I'm probably going to be looking to itemize the Ziggs in this particular game. There are other units you can use to carry. If you hit early Brand can hold Spellweaver items really well also. He does actually better damage than Ziggs, but you tend to hit him a little bit later because he's a 2-cost unit as opposed to a 1-cost unit. Unfortunately, I really haven't seen a whole lot of the Spellweavers thus far. Also haven't seen a whole lot of other frontliners to pair with that Poppy. Like, no Leona's popped up, no Nautilus has popped up, no Thresh has popped up, although Thresh is not quite as good of a frontliner as some of those other units. So here I'm thinking, you know what, let's just get to 10 gold at the end of this round. I'll probably sell something. You can play a number of different front lines. I actually kind of prefer to play Brawler frontline with this setup just because Nunu is a unit that I'm going to want to play later on. So if I can hit like a 2-star Gragas, that wouldn't be the worst thing to play. But it's going to depend at least in part on what I get here, whether I win or lose this round. If I lose this round, I will probably sell both the Gragas and the Callista that are on the bench. If I win this round, then I probably just sell the Callista, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I can't, it's actually been a little while since I played this game, because it looks like I'm going to lose this, but yeah, there we go. I opt to sell the stuff on my bench. The other option would have been buy the other Gragas and then pre-level to level 5, but I think it was better just to get up to 10 gold. That round didn't go especially well because my front line fell too quickly. The good news is I do get higher carousel priority. The bad news is, even though 3 of us are tied at 94 health, I apparently lose the tiebreaker, and I pick 3rd off the carousel. My top priority would be to get the sword here so I can make an early Spear of Shojin, and it looks like I'm going to be able to get that on a 3-cost unit, so that's fantastic. I'll just go ahead and do that. There is also the option to hold for a Gunblade, but since I want Shojin and Gunblade anyway, I figure I might as well make the Shojin first. Shojin is not great on Ziggs because his mana costs are kind of low, but it'll be fantastic on Vel'koz. And here I actually end up getting much nicer setup here. I find the 2-star Victor. I'm waiting on more Ziggs, but I also find a Brand, so I'm just gonna play that. And this gives me 3 Spellweavers, which is not ideal. But it does give me pretty good damage right now. The issue at the moment is my front line is pretty terrible. I would happily play another Hellion here. Like, I would happily play a Kled or something. Or, yeah, probably would play like a Kled for more frontline and get Hellions in. But I haven't seen any other Hellions either. It is often common if you find an early Poppy and you're playing through Ziggs to just play Hellions for the early game. Even if you're going into something like Spellweavers. That's not the way that this game goes, if I remember correctly, but it is something that can work. It's another way to open with this comp. As usual with team comps, you can have a lot of different openings that end up at you get to an ending. Like, you might have like an ending that you're trying to get to, but you get there in different ways. I'm not explaining it that well, but that's one of the things that I often find is, like, I have a team comp I want to reach by the end game, but like I'll play different openings depending on what units I hit. This looks like a bit of an empty board here. So and there we go. There is in fact the Hellions. So I opt to go ahead and put in the Kled to get the Hellions in here. The other reason I do this is by picking up the Kled and selling the Vlad, I'm actually able to get up to 20 gold, which hits the next income break mark. So I think that's better. The Vlad wasn't really doing anything, and this lets me transfer the Jeweled Gauntlet over to Ziggs, who can use it much better than Vlad, who is not really a main damage dealer. He's more of like a support unit than a mainline damage dealer. But we've got one more round to go here. My econ's in pretty good shape. My health's in pretty good shape. I've only lost 1 round. It's a little bit unfortunate that the loss came in the middle of a potential win streak. Like, I won 2 rounds, then I had a loss, and if I can win this, which it looks like I'm going to do, because this other comp doesn't really have any damage, and they have like 7 items on the bench, which is not the smartest thing to do. But yeah, so unfortunate that loss came right in the middle of the stage, but I'm pretty happy overall. I've got a lot of the items that I want already for a future, for a future Vel'koz. And I've been hitting Spellweavers at a pretty decent pace. All right, so since we've got a minion round here, let's go ahead and highlight what the Spellweaver trait does. I'm just going to read the description because I have the cheat sheet here up on my screen. Spellweaver. Spellweavers have bonus ability power, which increases whenever a champion uses an ability, stacks up to 10 times. So at 2 Spellweavers, which is what I have in right now, all the Spellweavers get 20% extra ability power, and then they get another 2% bonus ability power whenever any champion uses an ability. Doesn't have to be a Spellweaver. When anyone on your team uses an ability, they get another 2% stacking bonus. So 2% or 20% to start, and then you can get up to another 20% by the end of the fight. At the 4 Spellweaver level, this is 60% ability power to start, and then it stacks 6% and can stack up to 10 times. So you can get up to another 60%. So as you might imagine, if you run 4 Spellweavers, that's a lot of ability power. I mean a lot of ability power. You're getting 60% on your Spellweavers and then up to another 60%. And Spellweavers is also a trait that kind of scales well as the game goes on, because again, the benefit stacks up whenever any champion uses an ability. It doesn't have to be a Spellweaver. So as the team sizes get bigger, there's more abilities being used, and the stacking benefit goes up more quickly. So that's what I meant when I said that the Spellweavers don't really have to worry too much about damage. I mean, obviously it's good to itemize better setups, but the damage is kind of always going to be there with a Spellweaver setup because of the way that this works. If you're running 4 Spellweavers, it's just the trade-off is, yes, you're running units like Victor and Brand, which are not great late-game units, but the damage can make up for that. And I think it's one of the more consistent team comps. Like, it's not necessarily a win the lobby team comp, but if you can find just one Vel'koz, even a 1-star Vel'koz that's getting all that extra ability power, can still carry pretty hard as long as you itemize correctly. So anyway, that's why I've kind of been liking this team composition, and it seems to be one of the stronger ones on the ladder right now. All right, so we went ahead and got a tier from the minion round. I've also had the chance to pick again in the armory, and I go ahead and pick a sword because the last item that's ideal for a Vel'koz would be to get a gunblade. And here I'm just going to toss in a 1-star Leona. Why? Because it gets the Knight trade in. I don't need more damage at this point. What I really need is to get more frontline. Like the Ziggs, the Brand, and the Victor all do pretty good damage. Now, I would prefer to play 4 Spellweavers here, but I have not seen a Zyra pop up yet. And of course, haven't seen a Vel'koz pop up yet. Not that we would expect to see one. So I went ahead and leveled to 6 because I'm on a modest win streak. I've won 3 games in a row here. The Leona will help give me a little bit more frontline, make me a little bit tankier. I am scouting the other team comps, doing the best I can to try and basically just dodge assassins jumping on my backline. The good news is this doesn't seem to be a terribly assassin-heavy lobby, which is honestly quite good with me. Spellweavers don't really like it when people dive on the backline. This is a comp that is much better at front-to-back team fights. It is not a team composition that wants to be dealing with assassins at all. So far things look like they're going reasonably well, but then that Riven just kept healing, and it turns out, no, not able to get through the Riven, who has the extra attack speed from the Shadow Zeeks, has the Quicksilver Sash, and then had the obviously rolled Life on Hit for the Hand of Justice there. So no, just too much healing, couldn't get through that team, which is sad because I was already level 6, that person was only level 5, and I was hoping for better there. Well, in this case, I have the option to, if I want to, I can play the... I have the option to play the Rel here, and I think that that's better. Like, I think Rel is just so much better of a unit than either Kled or the Leona, that it's better to play one of them. And then I see that there's a Jax in the store at 5% odds. I was like, man, why couldn't I be playing Skirmishers? But I was like, if I'm going to play Rel, why don't I just toss in Jax here as well and get Ironclad in play? I won't be running Jax for very long, but I mean, right? Like, the extra armor on everybody feels like it's going to be pretty good. So I play that over the Brand because the Brand is just a 1-star unit, and I favor the 2-star Victor over that. Now, that said, this is kind of an Assassin's team comp, so it's not a great setup for me. Jax doesn't have Skirmisher trait in play, so he's not going to be all that strong either. And this fight's not going especially well. Doesn't look like I have enough. Remember I said Assassins tend not to be a great matchup. So after going on that win streak, now I've lost a few rounds in a row, which is not ideal. But I do get higher carousel priority here. And we've got quite an interesting carousel here. We've got all these spatulas on here. There is also a Vel'koz on this carousel as well. But I decide that since I have the opportunity to grab this, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the rod. It is unfortunately on a 1 gold champion on the Lysandra there, so it's not going to sell for much. But I decided let's just lock down our Vel'koz items for later. We're going to have the best in slot Vel'koz items, the Shojin to generate mana, the Gunblade for healing, and then the Jeweled Gauntlet for spell crit. I suppose the absolute best in slot is to have a Shadow Gauntlet instead of the normal Gauntlet, but can't get everything that you want. This is still pretty good, if not quite best in slot. And then I opt to roll a little bit because I basically just wanted to find Zyra to get 4 Spellweavers in play. So I decided to roll. I hit the 2-star Ziggs and I hit the Zyra. And so at that point, I was like, I don't think I need to roll further here. So I'm moving out of Hellions. I decided Hellions were good for the early game, but I'm going to drop them here. So for the time being, I'm going to play this very unconventional Jax plus Rel frontline, and then hope I can find something else later on. But the big thing was getting the 4 Spellweavers in play and hitting the 2-star Ziggs. I think it ended up being a really good call to roll there. Like I said, I had a pair of Ziggs, and I really just wanted to find one more Spellweaver so I could get the 4 Spellweavers in play. This is a big power spike to go up to 4 Spellweavers here, because as I mentioned, we just get so much more ability power in the process. Like I said, it goes from 20% flat to 60% flat, and it goes from 2% per cast to 6% per cast. So by the end of these fights, like the Zig is getting 120% additional ability power, and I should sell the Callista here to try to get up to 50 gold. I'm sitting at 49. Don't really need that Callista. I should almost certainly sell it, but missed the opportunity. All right, now here I have an opportunity to get the Nunu, who is a unit I've been looking for, and I decide that I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to look to put this in for frontline, and then I can look potentially to play the Callista at the next level, at level 7, and that would allow me to get Abomination in play, which is a trait that often works well with this team composition. You're going to be playing Brand anyway in a Spellweaver's team comp, and he's one Abomination unit. So you can pair him with other Brawlers oftentimes, and that seems to work well. Obviously, Brawler is one of the frontline options. And then you only need one other unit in order to get the Abomination in play, which can be Callista, like I have on my bench right now, or it could be somebody like Ryze is kind of preferred for the late game. Ryze, of course, gives you a way to get Mystic into the team composition as well. So a pretty good setup there. By the way, note that how much damage the Zyra ultimate did to that Victor in the backlines. Took out like 90% of Victor's health. So we just need anyone else to hit the Victor, and looks like Ziggs is on it. So after we rolled a little bit of gold in order to get up to 4 Spellweavers, turns out that was enough to get a big spike in power. And now the issue I need is not damage, but I need to solve my front line. My front line is still very weak right now. So I need to put something up there in order to get it stronger. I've got a 1-star Rel and a 1-star Nunu, and Brawler's trade is not in play, and Redeem trade is not in play, and Cavalier trade is not in play. So my front line is pretty much wet tissue paper right now. It's not going to stop anything. But if I can actually solve that, then I'm reasonably well set up here to be strong for the late game. I just need to get more units up there to survive, and getting a Nunu off this minion round is really nice. And then I get another Nunu, and I get another Nico's help. So I've got these multiple Nico's helps here. I actually got 3 Nunus there, so I have to take the one out that's on the bench. And so here I end up rolling, and I hit the 2-star Brand. And when I hit the 2-star Brand, I was thinking, do I need to keep rolling here? I really would like to find a Vel'koz. And then I find the Garen. I was like, oh, let's just play the Garen. Even though we don't have like Knights in play or anything, that's going to be really nice for our team composition. So I've done a nice job of hitting here. I picked up the Brand. I picked up the, what else did I get? I picked up the Nunu, and I picked up the, what was the other thing? Oh, and the Garen, of course. So Garen is not a unit that you would typically spend a lot of time playing in this team competition. He doesn't fit it all that well, but his ultimate shreds magic resistance on the enemy team. So since his team is all magic damage, it's very nice having Garen on the team. He is not a core piece of this in the way he would be for a Karma Dawnbringer's team comp, but he certainly is not bad to have on the team. And with me lacking frontline, he's really nice to have in here. So I rolled not a lot of gold, but like maybe 10 to 15 gold there, but I think I got quite a bit stronger. I was pretty lucky in terms of what I hit. Now, there was one thing that was unlucky. I actually hit the top comp in the lobby, Captain Kyle Yan, who has not lost a round the entire game yet. I actually beat him, but it was a ghost round, so I didn't get to interrupt the win streak. I was like, really? I go up against the top comp in the lobby that won 10 rounds in a row, and I beat them, and I don't even get anything for it because it was a freaking ghost round. That's very sad. Oh, well. Well, in any case, I get another Kale at 1% odds, but Kale is one unit I can't really play into this comp all that well, so... well, is what it is. I'm not going to pick up the Kale, just not a unit that I play in this composition. So I opt to take the Shadow, Shadow Vest, and that's just because it's a frontline item. I just want to get more frontline stuff. Now, there is one thing you want to keep in mind if you're playing the team composition the way I'm setting it up here, and that is you want to think about getting items in such a way that they can go on the Abomination if you're planning on playing into the Abomination. So, for example, I went ahead and made a Static Shiv on Brand, and the main reason why I did that is so that item will pass over to the Abomination if I can get it in play. Static Shiv, not the greatest item, but I had a bow, I had a tier. It's at least decent in this team competition because it is a magic resist debuff, and again, my team does all magic damage. So having the magic resist shred on people on the enemy team is not bad. It's not an item I would go out of my way to make, but like I said, bows are kind of bad for this setup. There's not a lot you can do with them. use them on Static Shiv, or I guess you could also use bows on a Zerat Portal wouldn't be bad either. Putting Zerat Portal on like Nunu wouldn't be bad, but I had the opportunity to make that item. It's not terrible on the brand, and I think it was probably the best way to make use of the items I had. Don't be like that person who just lost this round here and has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, has like 9 items sitting unused on the bench and 28 HP. Like, don't do that. Use your items. Don't be stupid about using them, but you should look at using them. Now, what I should probably do here is just take out the Rel, sell her, transfer the Shadow Sunfire Cape over to Nunu, so that then the Shadow Sunfire will go over to the Abomination if I can get it in play. I can always put Rel back in later on in the game, and I'm going to want Rel long term because she's a redeemed unit. And having, I do need to get redeemed in when I find Vel'koz, because redeemed, of course, increases all his stats. Redeemed will increase, what is it, armor, MR, attack damage, and ability power. So I want to have it 3 redeemed in. You can also opt to build a Vel'koz comp into 6 redeemed, and that can work, although I do think that you end up having to play some redeemed units that aren't that great. Again, it depends on what item, depends on what units you're hitting. Whether it makes the sense to do that or not. In this particular fight, my front line just collapses too quickly. The enemy team's able to get on top of the Ziggs, and Ziggs is still the main portion of my damage. Ziggs is starting to get outscaled. I really do need to find the Vel'koz. He has been great for the early portions of this game, but his itemization is not quite what you would want if you're trying to carry through Ziggs. I posted a video on YouTube showing kind of a carry Ziggs earlier this week, and Ziggs would want like a blue buff. Ziggs doesn't really want a gunblade. So the itemization is not ideal for the Ziggs, and he's just getting outscaled at this point. So I really do need to find a Vel'koz and start transferring the items over. So I'm thinking I had enough health and I was strong enough to go to 8 before I had to do more rolling. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of my thought right now. I have nothing in particular that I'm looking to make. I don't have any items on my bench. This is probably just going to be the most expensive unit remaining. So I go ahead and grab, the Jax with the Shadow Belt, because, again, Shadow items are powerful. I'm sure I can make good use of this on somebody. And now that I have the items already for Vel'koz, I want to itemize my front line, just get tankier. So Shadow Belt is not the worst thing to have here. All right, so I actually go up to level 8 and start rolling, and I get lucky. I find the Vel'koz immediately, so this has definitely been kind of a high roll game. I've been pretty fortunate in the stuff I've been hitting, so we'll move these items over here. I do get to play another unit, so there we find another Vel'koz, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I hit again. I hit 2-star Lux, and I hit 2-star Zyre, and I was like, all right, I guess I don't have to roll anymore. So I go ahead and put in the Nautilus, and I try to Nico the Vel'koz just to get Vel'koz 2-star. I'm slightly too slow for that, and that's a bit unfortunate, so I didn't manage to get that off before the end of the round. But at this point, I was like, all right, well, that's 2-star Vel'koz. I did a really good job of hitting here. That was an exceedingly lucky setup. I kind of 2-starred everything. So let's just look to go ahead and econ to 9 right now. You're not going to be this lucky in every game, but I'm going to take advantage of the stuff that's been given to me and look to, there's no point really in rolling further here because I've 2-starred my whole board, except I guess the Nautilus isn't 2-starred and the Rel isn't 2-starred, but everything else is. So let's just hold here, and then we'll look to econ up to 9. I'm playing the Nautilus for the Ironclad, although I think in retrospect I probably should have just played Garen instead. And I do wish that the Shadow version of the Sunfire Cape were on the Nunu, because it would potentially go onto the Abomination. But I don't even have the Abomination in play yet, so I guess that's not that big of a deal. So now it's more important, I want to focus less on my own team and more on trying to position well to deal with the other teams. That's kind of the big thing in this game right now, trying to focus on these other team competitions. So I'm up against the person who still has not lost. Remember, I beat this person at the start of stage 4 in a ghost round. Now I have them in a non-ghost round, and I was actually positioning for this team comp just because if I was going to run into them, I wanted to be in a position to beat them. And the good news is I am, in fact, in a pretty good setup to deal with them. My Vel'koz was on the correct side, which was also the correct side for this round. And we're going to inflict the first defeat of the game on Captain Kyle Yan. So that person won 14 consecutive rounds to open the game. Lost to me in a ghost round, but didn't actually lose any health for that. And so if I want to win the lobby, this is the comp I'm going to have to overcome. Unfortunately, this person's playing a Kale comp, and that is the comp that scales the hardest into the late game. So I'm going to have to try to deal with that. You're going to see me doing different positioning, and most of the positioning is going to be trying to focus around being in a position to counter this comp, because honestly, the other comps in the lobby don't really scare me. It's mostly how do I deal with this Kale team composition, and I'm definitely worried about that. Okay, now in that particular round, I took out the Nautilus. I wasn't that concerned about needing Ironclad in because it didn't seem like there were that many comps that were physical damage based. There were some, but didn't feel like I really needed Ironclad all that badly. Here, I'm going to go ahead and get 2 more items. I get a rod and a sword, and the good news is I can make a Shadow Morellos from these items. I was like, ooh, that feels really good. Now, do I have someone I can put Shadow Morellos on? And I kind of do. I'm going to put it on Zyra. So this will lower Zyra's base damage, but it will give that burn effect that lasts for the entirety of the round, 30-second true damage burn on enemy targets. So she's a really good person to put that on because she hits a good portion of the board with her ult. And if I'm not going to put this on Vel'koz himself, which I wouldn't because it's a Shadow Morellos, then it's probably better on the Zyra than on anyone else. So that's definitely going to help me. I'm continuing to position Vel'koz on the right side, and this is the big thing in a Vel'koz team composition is positioning Vel'koz. You want to make sure Vel'koz is on the opposite side from wherever the carries are on the team you're hitting. So right now, the Kayle team is positioning the Kayle on the left-hand side. So I want Vel'koz to be on the right-hand side so that the beam is always going to go to the opposite corner to start. So that's why it's very important for me to have Vel'koz on the right, so he will cast over to the left. And now we just need to kill this Hecarim, who was a 3-star Hecarim, but doesn't look like it was quite as tanky as the 3-star Hecarims sometimes are. And we're going to knock out that player with the exact amount of damage. So whoops, bad news for them, but I'm glad to see that we don't have an opportunity for that Hecarim to get tankier, because 3-star Hecarim can be really annoying once it stacks up all the defensive bonuses on Hecarim. Okay, so what else do we have to think about here? Well, I should talk at least a little bit about the Abomination, because I am running that trait right now. I have Rise in for Mystic and to get the Abomination in play. So this is similar to how the Cultist worked in set 4, where you would put Cultist units in, and then they would cause a big Galio to be summoned. And the more Cultists you had in, the stronger the Galio would be. Similar idea for Abomination. The more Abomination units you have in, the stronger the Scion is when he pops out of the graveyard and comes into the fight. So he comes into the fight, I believe, when a certain amount of Abomination units are dead, or a certain amount of them have taken some amount of damage, but comes bursting out, provides a burst of crowd control, because he will charge towards what gets hit, then starts attacking really fast at first, then the attack speed falls off, then mana will fill back up, and then will attack quickly again. So again, pretty similar to Cultist as a trait, but the one difference is that you can in fact pass items over to the Abomination. Every Abomination unit can randomly send one of their items over to the Abomination. So right now that would be Nunu and Rise and Brand. And I actually haven't, like I said, that's part of the reason why it would be better to, if I could, sell the Rel and transfer that Shadow Sunfire Cape over to Nunu, because then that item would pass over to the Abomination. And of course, it can only get 3 items. Right now, I can guarantee what those items are because I don't have very many items on my Abomination units. Right now, it's guaranteed to get the Static Shiv, and then I tossed that sword on Rise for exactly that reason. So that sword would also pass over onto the Abomination. Anyway, we're back to the Kayle comp again, Captain Kyle Yan. But notice what happened with this person. Look at their gold bar on the right-hand side of the screen. They have no gold left. That means this person has rolled 100% of their gold at level 8. And that's a really bizarre decision. This is, I would argue pretty strongly that this was a mistake that this player made. We are fortunately just able to take out that Kayle, who did get pegged with the Shadow Morellos from Zyra. But they rolled all their gold down and they only found 1 Kayle. And this was a big mistake because this person won 14 consecutive rounds to open the game. This person had more than enough gold to get to level 9. And their odds of finding a 2-star Kayle much, much higher at level 9. So I would argue that this was a pretty seriously mismanaged economy. If you're playing a Kayle composition and you win 14 rounds in a row to open the game, you are super duper duper ultra rich, and you can easily afford to go to level 9 and then roll your gold at level 9, where you have much, much, much better odds of finding the Kayle. So it's actually really lucky for me that this person has opted to roll for Kayle at level 8 as opposed to level 9. You only have 5% odds at level 8, but I believe you have 12. It's either 12 or 15% odds for the legendary units at level 9. They just are much, much, much higher. They're more than double as high. I think they're almost triple as high. So they rolled down. They didn't hit. They got 2 Kayles, but not 3 Kayles. And that means the Kayle is just 1 star. The itemization is pretty good on the Kayle. Rageblade is great. The Hand of Justice is pretty good. You'd prefer to have Shadow Hand of Justice, but normal Hand of Justice, not bad. It's just that you're only going to roll the healing 50% of the time, whereas with the Shadow Hand of Justice, you're guaranteed to have the healing turn on and off throughout the fight. And the one downside is does not have a Guardian Angel, which would be a huge difference. Does have an item that's good against my team composition in the form of the Dragon's Claw, which is going to provide a lot of magic resistance. So that's good for my comp, but it's not as good as it would be to have a Guardian Angel. So pretty good itemization, but not best in slot, if that makes sense. And everybody else has gotten knocked out, so it's just going to be the two of us. And I have 63 health, and the kill player has 80 health. So we might be here for a little while. I'm going to need to try to take this person down if I can make it that far. As far as the last carousel went, I should talk a little bit about the items we took off the carousel. I went ahead and took the Cavalier Spat because I figured I could put that on one of my frontliners, and that'll make my frontline a lot tankier. That'll get the Cavalier trait in play, which is a great trait for frontliners. Cavalier trait has all that damage reduction. The big thing that Cavalier trait does is most of the Cavaliers are early game units, so you generally don't want to play a lot of Cavalier units. Also, by the way, note that I reposition. The one thing is the other player did pick up a Shroud of Stillness off that carousel, which is a great item, and it's a good item against my comp because it will delay how long it takes for Vel'koz to cast. So now I'm going to have to work to dodge that Shroud, and I actually haven't even put the Cavalier Spat in yet. I was waiting to see what units I hit at level 9. Oh, that's not good. Vel'koz was about to ult, but then his ult gets interrupted. But in comes the Abomination. Come on, can we kill that Kale? And woo! Turns out the Morello's burn gets Kale. This was one round that she did not roll the life on hit from her Hand of Justice. Just a 50-50 chance. Didn't get the life on hit. And the burn from the Shadow Morello has just slowly killed Kale over the course of the entire fight. Pretty hilarious, but that's kind of how that one played out. All right, so we're going to go to level 9 here after the minion round. I'll have enough gold to get there, and then I should have enough gold to roll. I should have about 50-ish gold to roll, so I should be able to put in some legendary units. And I'm going to have some decisions to make about which legendaries I want to play. This is actually a team comp that doesn't really need to run any legendary units at all, so it's a comp that oftentimes might want to like stay at level 8 and not look to go to level 9. This was just a game where it was so obvious we were going to have a late game showdown between the two of us that I figured, hey, it's going to be the two of us in this game, so let's just try to go to level 9. Now I'm just going to look to see what I can hit. I do have the option to put in another unit for Mystic. That's one of the things I was thinking. I was like, that might not be bad. You know, Kale's damage is mostly magic. I'm going to 2-star the Rise there. I have the option to buy Teemo for more gold, but I'll pass. I do pick up the Rel. So I'd love to 2-star the Rel, and I'm looking, and I'm just picking up these Vel'kozes randomly because why not? There's always a chance I could get enough of them to get a 3-star Vel'koz. So at this point, I'm going to stop. I need to use the last couple seconds of the fight to reposition. This is not quite the way I want to be set up. I'll go ahead and put the Cavalier Spat on the Nunu, and then I put the Death Cap on Rise. And again, this is the hope that some of these items will transfer over to the Abomination when it comes flying in. Note that this person still has not managed to get the 2-star Kale, so that's really big. And this person has like no gold to roll because they have no gold in the bank. They're losing these matches. They're not on a win streak or anything. So they're only getting like 5 or maybe 6 gold to roll with each round. So that's really good news for me. And we're able to do 16 damage. But unfortunately, I still have to win probably 3 or 4 more rounds. So I was like, all right. There we're going to 2-star the Rel. That's nice. Now I don't have to worry so much about the Sunfire Cape not being on the Nunu because now I have a Cavalier Spat that can pass to the Abomination, which is pretty good. And I managed to hit the... I managed to find 2 of the Kindreds. I was like, all right, since I haven't found Garen's, we'll just keep the Kindred in. Mystic 3 I think is pretty good against this team comp because most of the damage over there is magic. That'll help keep my team alive for at least a little bit longer. And then, I was watching that team. I'd been able to dodge the Shroud the first couple rounds, but not able to dodge it that time. So Vel'koz is going to get shrouded, and that's not ideal. I am hoping that I can win this round so I can buy the Kindred 2-star, but I went ahead and locked in the shop just in case I lose the round. Good Vel'koz ult, even though it was delayed. Zyra has been a huge hero in these fights as well because Zyra's been getting the Shadow Morello's burn onto Kale, and that cuts any healing that she takes. It cuts any healing that she gets in half. Also, the knockup from the Scion Abomination is nice too. Look, he's got the Cavalier Spat, and he's got the whatchamacallit. Oh, and that round's super close, but we managed to finish it. So I'm going to unlock. He had the Static Shiv. That was the item I was trying to say. Sometimes you get tongue-tied. Now, though, I've got 7 Vel'kozes here, and I still have a Nico's help on my bench. So I just need to find one more Vel'koz, and I've got the 3-star Vel'koz. So I was like, oh, come on, show me one more Vel'koz here. Meanwhile, the other players kind of run through all their gold. They're just hoping to get that Kale. So I was making a mental note to myself here. I was like, all right, the one thing you have to do is just, you got to make sure if there's a Kale on this carousel, don't let them take the Kale off the carousel. So here I fake that I'm going to position on the left to try to dodge the Shroud. I thought that the other player would move the Shroud, but they ended up just keeping the Shroud in place, which was a little bit weird. I was like, oh, okay, I thought you're going to reposition and when I've repositioned Vel'koz. So I kind of faked myself out there, but we've got the Morello's burn on Kale. That's really important. Like I said, Zyra doing a lot of work there. The Nunu lasts forever with that Cavalier sped. Actually becomes really tanky, and we still have the Abomination to come in here. So it looks like we are able to cut down Kale before she ramps up, like just barely. Oh, come on. We just need another Vel'koz on. Oh my god, she rolled Life on Healing from her Hand of Justice, but woo. We do in fact manage to get that. The Kale rounds are so scary because you know if she starts ramping up that that's going to be it. So I see the Shroud of Stillness, and I was like, oh man, this guy's been shrouding me in every round. Turnaround is fair play. I'm going to take that Shroud from him. And as soon as I did that, I was like, wait, uh-oh. There was a Kale on this carousel, wasn't there? I was like, oh no! I even told myself you have to take a Kale if it's on the carousel to deny it to that player. Now they've got Kale 2-star. I was like, oh, I need to get this Vel'koz. So let's go ahead and buy these Teemos to get more gold to roll with. And then I find the Vel'koz immediately thereafter. So maybe I didn't need to do that, but whatever. We got the 3-star Vel'koz, baby. Woo! So that person gets 2-star Kale, but I get the 3-star Vel'koz. And I've even got a Shroud now to position here at the start of this next round. So I'm going to move the Vel'koz over to the left-hand side. I've managed to dodge the Shroud. We'll dump this Shroud here to hit most of the team. Again, Kale doesn't use mana, so that doesn't matter. But I've got the 3-star Vel'koz, and Vel'koz damage triples when he goes to 3-star, so everything just dies instantly. Kale gets hit by the beam, and yeah, goodbye, Kale. So we do 21 damage to this player, and seeing that they're not going to be able to win against the 3-star Vel'koz, that player just surrenders, and I think that that's a fair surrender. He was never going to beat the 3-star Vel'koz once I hit it. So, well, there you go, Spellweaver Vel'koz, fun game there. Definitely a high roll game, a game where I was hitting for sure, but I hope that showed some ways to put this comp together, which I've been enjoying and having a good bit of success with. Anyway, though, hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, take care, have a good one, and I'll see you guys again soon.